workshop today is practicing mindfulness. At the core of most adrenal issues and nervous system dysregulation lies fear and anxiety. We've talked about how fear is the source of most of our symptoms and suffering, right? So addressing the root of these underlying emotions is a critical step in healing the adrenal glands and moving the body into regulation. Without addressing this, you're not going to get very far. Okay, so we have to learn how to overcome fear and anxiety. If you are here, and we're going to get into this below, if you have anxiety, if you feel like you're always stuck in your mind in an endless loop of worry and catastrophizing and anxiety, the antidote to anxiety is mindfulness. There is not a word or a tool that is more powerful that I could share with you. When we learn how to practice mindfulness, it has the ability to stop anxiety in its tracks. Once I learned this, like anxiety for me is a thing of the past. Do I ever feel anxious? Yes, but I never get stuck in a loop of anxiety because I know exactly how to break out of it. Okay, and unlike anxiety, which feeds on apprehension and avoidance, mindfulness has a curiosity component, a presence component, an acceptance component, right? Where it actually moves toward. All anxiety is like, ooh, avoidance. Mindfulness moves toward with curiosity and non-judgment. Okay, so what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present and fully engaged in the current moment without judgment or distraction. It involves paying attention to thoughts, feelings, emotions, bodily sensations, surrounding environments with acceptance and openness. Mindfulness is the ability to observe the experience without becoming the experience and reacting to the experience. And this allows us this separation allows us such a greater sense of emotional balance and well-being when we're not constantly stuck in this state of avoiding and reacting, okay? So how in the heck do we dissolve our fear and anxiety? Mindfulness is exactly how. Mindfulness allows us to interrupt the loop of anxiety. Anxiety is a loop that I'll explain in a second, and separate yourself from the loop. It's the ability to be with fear and anxiety and anything, emotions, sensations, without becoming them, perpetuating them, and adding to them, okay? So anxiety is a loop. If you're here with anxiety, listen up. All anxiety is a loop of alarm in the body, which is just a dysregulated nervous system, which drives fearful thoughts, which causes more alarm in the body and more fearful thoughts. That is the loop that is anxiety. Mindfulness is what allows us to break out of this loop. One of the core elements of mindfulness is curiosity. Curiosity is the opposite of anxiety because it's moving toward sensation and feeling without fear and judgment. It's the ability to be with, but without reacting to. Fear and anxiety diminishes when we move toward it, toward the uncomfortable emotions and sensations, and just experience them. And the ability to be with the fear and the anxiety is exactly what's going to allow it to dissolve. And avoidance, which is what you're all doing, that is anxiety. If you're struggling with anxiety, that's what you're doing. You're avoiding the fear by thinking. Thinking is a way we avoid. But guess what? Thinking causes it. Mindfulness allows us to dissolve it. So when you understand that anxiety is just a loop of physical dysregulation coming from alarm in the body, triggering the fear-based thinking, which perpetuates more alarm in the body, you can see why mindfulness serves as a really powerful antidote. It is the opposite. Avoidance fuels while mindfulness and curiosity dissolves. Trying to eliminate anxiety is exactly what keeps you stuck in it. If you have anxiety and you haven't been able to overcome it, this right here will change your life. Having anxiety and trying to eliminate it is exactly what keeps you stuck in it. And the more you try to push it away, the stronger it becomes, because anxiety is energy. And trying to suppress energy increases it. Anything we resist persists. So the more we try to eliminate it, same thing goes for those of you here with chronic symptoms. The more we try to avoid and like escape and fix, the more the body sees this as a threat to our safety, which increases anxiety or increases symptoms. The only way to break free is to shift how you respond to anxiety or symptoms and see anxiety or symptoms for what they are. A threat response in the body made worse by thinking. For mindfulness totally interrupts this loop and allows you to be with the sensation of anxiety without becoming caught up in it. I cannot even tell you how important practicing mindfulness is. Something our whole world is pretty horrendous at. Is something that will change your life forever. Like the fact that this isn't being taught in schools and shouted from is like absurd to me. We're living in a world where, most people struggle with anxiety. And there's things like this that are so beyond effective. If you can do it, it's going to take practice. It's not the easy pill. It's not a Xanax. It's that you have to learn how to take back control of your mind. You can do it. It takes some practice. So anxiety can just be a thing of the past. Okay. So if you struggle with anxiety and fear, a lot of catastrophizing, or even anyone here with chronic health issues, mastering mindfulness should be at the top of your list because it is one of the most effective ways to overcome fear, anxiety, and chronic health issues, okay? So in order to be able to master it, we have to understand its key elements. Present moment awareness, non-judgment, acceptance, and awareness of breath. Those are the key aspects of mindfulness. Present moment awareness, focusing on the here and now, being able to be with rather than dwelling in the past or worrying about the future. Mindfulness has a present moment awareness. Non-judgment, observing without labeling good or bad. So many of you here with anxiety, notice you start to feel anxiety and you're just like, oh, not my anxiety again. That judgment is enough to keep you stuck in the loop forever. Mindfulness, the opposite, no judgment. There's my anxiety. Oh, well. All it is energy in my body. I know it doesn't feel good. I lived with it for years. I also remember the day that's all clicked and it's been a thing of the past since I can remember. Acceptance, embracing experiences as they are. There's my anxiety. Didn't kill me yesterday. It's not going to get. When we start to change the way we respond to our symptoms, anxiety being one of them, without trying to change and resist and control and avoid, that's when they dissolve. Why? Because we feel safe. But as long as we try to fix, it perpetuates danger, which causes more anxiety. So we have to accept. Move toward with curiosity, no judgment. Awareness of breath. This is often used to anchor us and to bring us back into the present moment. Next month workshop is on breath, and it is going to be insanely powerful. For the reason I put the breathwork workshop right up front is because when we learn how to breathe properly, we learn how to be more aware of our breath, it can shift so much for us so quickly. Okay, so mastering mindfulness, top of your list, one of the most powerful tools you will ever find to heal. Without being able to practice mindfulness, it's going to be really difficult for you to ever heal from not only anxiety, but any chronic health challenge. It's a really important skill Not only for that, but learning how to process your emotions. We're going to learn how to process emotions because repressed emotions are one of the #1 threats to our nervous system. They trigger the fight or flight nervous system. If we can't practice mindfulness, that's why we're going to learn it now before we learn how to process our emotions down the road. We won't know how to process our emotions without becoming our emotions. And a lot of you here are more empathic, you're sensitive. Part of the reason that you're not processing your emotions, that you might be suppressing them and avoiding them, maybe numbing them, is because it's too much for you to feel. It's because you become your emotions. We have to be able to feel without becoming. Otherwise, we're going to get swept away in this insanely tumultuous current. Mindfulness allows us to be with fear, to be with our emotions, to be with our symptoms and our bodily sensations without becoming afraid and overwhelmed by them. I want to give you a little visual example of this. Imagine your emotions, your fear, your anxiety, as rushing water, crashing down the canyon. Without mindfulness, we become like the crashing water, getting tossed into the rocks and the banks and smashed and hurled over waterfalls. And we get swept away by the current, feeling so overwhelmed and unstable and just like, it's terrifying. Mindfulness allows us to step back from this turbulent state, like standing beside the rushing water. Now you're up on the riverbank and you're observing the movement of the water calmly without being pulled into the chaos. You're able to be with it and observe it from a place of calm, maintaining the inner peace and the clarity, which fosters resilience and supports your ability to emotionally regulate. When we practice mindfulness, we learn how to do this, to step outside of, to stop becoming our feelings. And then it's not so much, it's not so overwhelming. And then we're emotionally regulated and we feel so much better. Mindfulness allows us to separate ourselves from our symptoms, from anxiety, from anything that scares us and causes us to want to escape or judge it as right or wrong. As soon as we start to get into like, oh no, there it is, we perpetuate it. So the only way to dissolve fear and anxiety effectively, to be able to process your emotions and feel them and be present with them without becoming them, is to be able to practice mindfulness. It allows us to do this. And this is so unbelievably important for your nervous system. Because if we can't do this, we're just going to be stuck in this state of reacting and fear and anxiety. Your emotions are meant to be felt, not endlessly escaped from and analyzed and solved and replayed and hashed over and relived and all the things that we do, thinking that we're processing our emotions. That emotions are energy in motion. They happen in our bodies. They're a sensation in our body. And when we learn how to reconnect and tune in and also practice mindfulness so we're not becoming, then we can just observe and we're not taken through the rushing waters of our anxiety and everything that is everything that is hard in life. Mindfulness is so powerful. Okay, the root of anxiety, another really powerful point here. The root of anxiety is overthinking. Anxiety is a cycle of overthinking and under-feeling. When we integrate mindfulness into our thoughts and experiences, we get to interrupt this cycle immediately. By staying mindful, we observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, without becoming them, which stops the fear response and completely breaks the loop that is anxiety. Okay, how do we do this? How do we disrupt this cycle? Step 1, increase awareness. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment. When you're mindful, you become aware of your thoughts and feelings as they arise. You separate yourself from them, and this awareness is what helps interrupt the automatic, what was just going to be like your reaction to it, it just stops that. And it interrupts it immediately. Awareness. Observe thoughts non-judgmentally. We have to be able to observe ourselves without creating more suffering and resistance, right? So instead of getting just caught up in our thoughts and labeling things as right and wrong and good and bad, we just need to observe our thoughts objectively and to just, there's a thought. We cause ourselves so much suffering because we think we are our thoughts and we get so caught up in them and we become them, and it causes us an insane amount of suffering. The next time you have a rush of adrenaline, you're really scared and you're really worked up, I want you to trace it back to the thought that you just had that you believed, which led to the subsequent rush of cortisol and adrenaline because you had this scary thought and it was probably just like a, worst case scenario, catastrophizing thought, boom, cortisol, adrenaline, heart rate, everything's going. Mindfulness prevents all of that. You're not your thoughts. Self-awareness and mindfulness are what allow you to become separate. It is some of the best work you'll ever do. Okay, with mindfulness, we have to learn how to create space between you and your thoughts. So rather than becoming consumed and just having this be this automatic process, you have to step back, create that space and distance so that you can have that more balanced perspective of like, whoa, that was just a fear-based thought. Like that, I'm not going to buy that and then experience the adrenaline, the cortisol. Space. Hit the pause. So many of you are stuck in a state of fight or flight and have been for so long, and you're just stuck in this state of reactivity, and your thoughts and then the stress and then more thought, and it's just this, again, loop. Hit the pause. Start to step back and slowly observe. It's a loop you can break out of. It just takes some mindful awareness. Focus and attention. Mindfulness often involves focusing on specific anchor, such as your breath or sensations in your body, right? Reconnecting with our body, directing our attention to the present moment, rather than constantly going on this crazy ride in our minds, these anxiety-inducing thoughts, right? Just focusing our attention on something that grounds us in the moment. Acceptance of uncertainty. Anxiety is often fueled by a fear of the unknown or a desire to control. Mindfulness encourages acceptance of the present moment. Acceptance, it doesn't mean that we're just, giving up. But when we just accept what is as it is, again, it just allows us to separate ourselves from the storm and be able to respond rather than react in the same old way. Also, we can interrupt our catastrophic thinking. Anxiety involves the catastrophic thinking where we're imagining these worst case scenarios, and mindfulness interrupts this pattern, brings our attention back to sensations, experience, whatever we're focusing on in the present moment, and just we get out of our head and into our body. If you're here with anxiety, some of the best advice I can give you is get out of your head and get into your body. When you start feeling the loop and oh, there it is again, anchor yourself in your body. Thoughts and thinking are the root of anxiety. They're what keep you stuck in the loop. Present moment awareness, coming back to being mindful of your body, is what's going to break that loop, okay? Cultivate a calm response. With consistency, mindfulness practices, we can learn how to respond in a calm way instead of just reacting impulsively, right, to our thoughts and just feeling stuck in this loop.